Palmetto Service Ribbon, and South Carolina Governor's Unit Citation. SSG Carter retired from the South Carolina Army National Guard on the 2nd of June, 2004. Veteran Walton James Carter served his country honorably, and today we show him appreciation. Thank you for your service. This is just a small token of our appreciation for what you've done and how you've served our country. Thank you. The next item on tonight's agenda is going to be public forum. This is a time where the public can share what they feel important with council. I want to note that this is a forum and not necessarily it is not a town hall, so the communication will be one-sided. We also limit speakers to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, please call our first speaker.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, I call Ellen Akers.
Hi, my name is Ellen Atwood Akers. I'm a property owner near Highway 11, real close to Highway 11. I'm also an environmental engineer and a biologist. I've worked on hundreds of properties all over the Southeast in environmentally sensitive areas, so I'm kind of familiar with some of these processes, seen a lot of this stuff over the years. My primary concern is regarding any proposed or implemented regulations regarding individual property owners, the residential type. That's my main concern. Commercial and industrial development is, at this point, for the most part, not cost effective in that area. But what happens is that the logistics of it, these people are able to allocate resources, staff, hire consultants, jump through all the hoops. They're used to it. The larger corporations with the deep pockets have a lot more money and are able to do it. So at that point, they can get by whatever regulations you have, and I've seen this over and over. Some of the most charming and beautiful areas in these rural areas have to do with people being here for generations. The individual homeowners that have built things the way they want. They're historically rural. They're very characteristic, and the architecture. So some of the plans I was reading about that you might want to change, that takes away a lot of that beautiful characteristics of the rural areas, and I would not want to see that. I do not believe that additional restrictions are necessary on commercial or industrial at this time, because DHAC and other agencies all take care of it, and I think those should be strictly enforced, and we can take care of things on an individual basis. And it is not really cost effective, and as I said before, they can jump through the hoops if they want. I especially want to ask this council that you place no additional restrictions on residential properties, homeowners. That's all I really have to say.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Wes Cooler. Wes Cooler. Rick Huffman.
I'm Rick Huffman. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I've been a resident of Pickens County since 1995. I've served on the City of Pickens Planning Commission for 5 years and helped write the comprehensive plan in 2010. I have received the Governor's Award for Environmental Awareness and worked extensively with conservation organizations such as Upstate Forever, the South Carolina Native Plant Society, South Carolina DNR, SCPRT, Friends of the Reedy, and I've written guidelines for mitigating and preventing sprawl for many agencies across the state. I was involved with ACOG in setting up the scenic designation for Highway 11 and assigned by the Heritage Corridor. I also helped assign the Heritage Corridor route in Pickens County. South Carolina Highway 11 is the jewel of Pickens County. Pickens County is home to some of the highest biodiversity of plants and wildlife anywhere in the world. The northern rim of the county is a world-class temperate rainforest with geology unmatched anywhere. The scenic byway is enjoyed by residents and visitors as something unique and cherished. The decision before you is a quality of life issue. The responsibility you have is to ensure the generations the same quality of life issues and protect the scenic values we all love about South Carolina Highway 11. Once you let the genie out of the bottle, you cannot put it back. Once spoiled, it becomes like everywhere else. Red lights and traffic lights, harm wildlife, trash and sprawl unchecked. To allow short-sighted decisions based upon greed and selfish view over the concerns of citizens will be irresponsible. If so, then your decision will forever alter the trajectory of Pickens and create a situation where all the taxpayers of Pickens County will have to fund the means for a few to take advantage of the unspoiled beauty. This is not sound physical policy. We, the citizens, place our faith and hope in you. I love Pickens County. I love its waters. I love its cold mountain streams, the highest species count in North America for native plants. I travel this state and speak often, and I brag constantly on Pickens County's natural wonders. Please, sir, do not give in to the short-sighted allure of tax base and greed to a few to ruin our county. And thank you for your time. I have put this letter on record with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Stash. Gary Stash. Linda Esposito.
My name is Linda Esposito, and I have been a resident of Pickens County since 1985. When I first moved to Pickens County, I was impressed by the natural beauty of Highway 11. That beauty needs to be protected. The building that's going on in Greenville is quite amazing, and I would like to see the expansion that is going on in Greenville to stay in Greenville. We need to protect Pickens County in regards to our natural resources and our green spaces. I don't think our water table is sufficient to support unlimited growth, and we risk losing the natural beauty of this area. And once lost, it cannot be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Chappell.
Thank you. The following statement is language attached to a petition circulated in recent weeks. Quoting, in recent months, the Pickens County Council has begun to formulate a plan to place restrictions on the allowable land use for properties along Highway 11 in Pickens County. The plan that's been discussed is to include all property within the area up to 1,000 feet each way from the center line of the road. The restrictions that are being proposed include a prohibition on subdivisions, multi-home lots, manufacturing, and commercial buildings. The residents of the county are being told that the plan restrictions are to protect the viewscape of the area. The natural beauty of the area is no doubt amazing and something that should be treasured. However, an attempt to restrict or remove property rights from the people who've lived in the area for years or who have just moved here and own land along Highway 11 is not desired and against the will of the undersigned. Pickens County has already adopted a Uniform Development Standards ordinance that covers many of the aspects the proponents of the plan that violates residents' property rights wish to put in place. The signers of this petition wish to maintain and defend their personal property rights from a local government that wishes to intrude in the use of the private land even more than is already happening. The residents of the Highway 11 area own the land and wish to decide for themselves what it is used for. Stop the restrictions on property rights along Highway 11, end quote. This language is neither vague nor ambiguous. It's a clear response in efforts by the council and administration to strip the residents of Highway 11 area of the right to do with their property what they choose. The petition currently has 170 signatures and continues to grow every day as word spreads about the actions taken or proposed by the council and administration. Any further discussion of this matter should be focused on the fact that such great number of people agree that they want no further restrictions on their property. Families in the area, some having generational ties to their land along the highway, wish to be able to provide land for their children to build homes on, build a business, to provide for their family, or any other use they have in mind for their property they own. And I stand in support of this petition, the property owners and the families it represents, and the right of the people to do with their land as they wish. What starts as a small government restriction of our rights will soon grow into a county-wide zoning and bureaucratic red tape stretching for miles. A list of the signers of this petition is available for each councilman if they desire, and anyone wishing to sign it, please visit change.org and search for Highway 11, Pickens County. Thank you.
Jan McCrary.
Good evening. I'm Jan Childress McCrary. I was born and raised here in Pickens County, and I currently own property along Highway 11. Thank you so much for your time that you spent on this proposed ordinance and listening to all the sides. But especially thank you for going to protect the property owners that will be directly affected by your decision. I respect the idea of a landscape buffer to protect the field while driving down Highway 11, but I believe a more narrow buffer would accomplish the same thing. I respectfully ask you tonight to consider a buffer that is less than 250 feet, and furthermore, I support the idea that past the buffer, property owners should have the right to do with their property as they see fit. I thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Myers.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Myers. I've been here several times before. I've been to committee meetings, I've been to county council meetings, I've been to ACOG meetings, and I've been to meetings with local people discussing the corridor that they want to put an overlay on. I know that Alex Sayeta comes to these meetings and he's prepared. Grant you, that's his district, but I feel that the other councilmen have not done their homework. They come unprepared. They don't know what the local people feel about the corridor that we want an overlay on and how we want to protect Pickens County. Pickens County is not Greenville County, and it's not Oconee County along Highway 11. It has the mountains, it has rare plants, it has the waterfalls, it has the rainforest. By Jocassee, like Rick Huffman said, they get about 100 inches of rain, and it's considered a rainforest up there. I don't feel county councilmen have really studied this. They come here and I've noticed, I sit and I observe, and one councilman makes comments regarding his emotions. Another congressman just sits on the fence, doesn't say which way or the other, how they feel about Highway 11. Another needs to be spoon-fed all the information before he could make a determination about Highway 11. And then we have another congressman that gives us word salad. At the last committee meeting, he made a comment about the Lewises wanting just a primitive campsite. Well, my husband wrote a letter with all the documentation stating that they want to put an RV park and campground right at the most dangerous intersection on Highway 11, South Saluda and Country Creek Road. But he said they wanted to put a primitive campsite. Obviously, he didn't read my husband's letter or look at the documentation attached, which was the application for the Planning Commission and the ad that the legal ad that they put in the paper, because both those documents specifically said RV park and campsite. I don't think we should go with the second reading tonight. I don't think some of the councilmen are prepared. I talked with a gentleman at one of the organizations that is trying to preserve Pickens County along Highway 11. They're trying to purchase land to keep it from being developed. And he said to me, "You're kind of naive. They're
Thank you, ma'am.
politicians."
Thank you.
And thank you.
Kevin Keller.
Hello, my name is Kevin Keller. My wife and I own a home at 116 Dorothy Lane. I've written to you all in the past about this ordinance under consideration and my concerns with it. I haven't seen the third draft, so I don't know exactly what the wording is for that one. But the most troubling part of the ordinance me in the past has been that it basically allows any development along the entire corridor as approved by the Planning Commission. I've read Planning Commission approvals of permits, and many of them basically say, yes, this violates the area plan, but it seems to be a benefit, so we approve it. And I'd see the same thing happen again on Highway 11. The second problem I see are the HOA-like restrictions placed on residential homes. I believe the vast majority of people here do not want these type of restrictions on their homes. Those that do want these restrictions usually move to a regulated development. They don't buy individual lots in the woods. As a past president of 2 different HOAs, I wrote to you before that the restrictions that I see in the ordinance about natural shades and earth tone hues are guaranteed to fail. Courts have ruled nationwide that grass green, daisy yellow, sunset orange are all colors that occur in nature. So basically, all colors are natural shades, and you cannot restrict colors unless you provide a list of approved colors with the Pantone numbers. Additionally, restrictions on building materials such as vinyl siding are outdated and based on 1950s reasoning when vinyl siding was a cheaply made alternative. Today's vinyl siding is rated to last 60 to 100 years. It's highly preferred over wood-based products that deteriorate more quickly and require constant repair and repainting. So these types of details in the ordinances don't make any sense at all to me. You need to take these restrictions on private homes out of the ordinance. The county should not attempt to be an HOA. I do like the land bank clause. Even though it may be difficult to put money in there, I think that it paves the way for the county to create more protected areas. The Grant Overlook is a perfect example of things that can be done along Highway 11. I went there the other day to take some photos to make a Christmas card, and there were half a dozen cars there. And I've seen cars parked at that spot almost every time I go past. People love it. Those are the kind of things we need to be doing. I thank you. I greatly appreciate your continued efforts on this issue, and I'm sure that you want to get past this probably as much as anybody else does. Thank you again. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bonnie Hiltner.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Bonnie Hiltner. I wasn't born in South Carolina, but I guarantee you I got here as quickly as I could. I haven't lived all my life here, but I will live the rest of my life here. My husband and I decided to settle here, start our farm here. We were taken by the beauty of the area and the kindness of the people. Now, y'all have already talked about overlay project planning, development standard ordinances. You do have responsibilities to the people who have voted you in here. I do believe that one of those responsibilities is to help keep Highway 11, which was designated as a scenic highway in 1998, to keep it rural and residential, not commercial. My t-shirt might seem a little disrespectful for this group, but let me tell you why. Because blah, blah, blah is what too many politicians seem to hear when they're contacted by residents, and too often, blah, blah, blah is what many residents feel that they hear from their elected officials on issues that concern them. I hope that you are all truly listening and hearing what the people who live here have to say. They're concerned about the natural beauty of the Cherokee Foothill Scenic Highway. They don't want McDonald's or Dollar Generals or RV parks or hotels or a plethora of gas station and convenience stores along Highway 11. They want it to stay rustic. Maybe some country inns and small unique restaurants, not chain type places. They're rightly concerned over the threat of overdevelopment, of big overcrowded housing plans with 4 or 5 houses per acre They're concerned with our public services being overwhelmed, like fire, EMS, police, water and sewer, trash removal. They want to know that the people they've elected are listening to them and not to the talking checkbooks of developers looking for another opportunity to, as Joni Mitchell sang about, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. Push is coming to shove on the moratorium on development on Highway 11. In the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko said, "Greed, for lack of a better word, is good." I not only disagree, but I also feel that unchecked growth that comes from greed is very bad. You all have the responsibility to do what's right. Please take it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melanie Sinikowski.
Good evening. By now you shall know me. I've been to several ACOG meetings. I've spoken to a number of you on the phone. I've emailed you. I've approached you directly, and I think you know my sentiment. I would agree with pretty much what you just heard. I really would like to see us not turn our area into an area where people come and hike Table Rock and then drive behind a berm and go get Starbucks. I just don't want to see that happen. And I think we're at a point where it's clear that there is some lack of preparedness on the part of the council. They really need to step up and get some expertise in here and really work collectively to get knowledgeable and informed about really how best to put some impactful decisions to please preserve this beautiful area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Ramsey.
Mr. Chairman and council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. 12 years ago, Lord called my wife and I out to plant a church to reach unchurched bikers. 3 months into the ministry, God blessed us with 7.5 acres of land along Highway 11. While my wife and I were at church planter basic training, the Lord spoke to us and said we need to put our church on Highway 11 because the motorcycle traffic there year-round is phenomenal. 12 years has passed, and we have worked and prayed and saved, and we have enough money to start building on our property that God gave us 12 years ago for our church. Imagine our surprise when we went to get our permit, and we were informed that a moratorium was in place by the county council prohibiting all industrial or commercial construction. I wondered, well, what does that have to do with us? We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We did not realize that in the state of South Carolina, you're either residential or commercial. So we have spent $10,000 obtaining a tent that we can meet under and have church, all because of an indecisive council or people in higher up don't know the difference between a commercial and residential. It just blows my mind. So I'd like to present to the council tonight that we are, as a church, prepared to bring forth legal action against this county for preventing us from building on our property as per the Religious Land Use Act signed into law by President Bill Clinton and our First Amendment rights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamara Herman. Mary Morfin.
Hey guys, nice little break from everything that you guys are concerned about. I'm a resident of Oconee County. I run a rescue called Miss Dixie's Kitten Rescue, and I help with Oconee and Pickens and sometimes Anderson County residents in particular. In the last 4 years, since about 2019 when we were established, we have rescued 358 kittens and cats from all these communities, mainly Pickens and Oconee County, and we have rehomed 305 of those animals. In the last few months, we have come into Pickens County and we have TNR, which stands for Trapped, Neuter, Returned Local Cats within your community. Most of the people that we help are individuals who are low income, no income, or don't have the means to take advantage of Pickens County's voucher program. Currently, the program is 3 vouchers per month per household, and most of the colonies that we are helping are roughly 20 to 30 cats. that need our help on top of the kittens that we pull into our organization to adopt out. I am asking Pickens County to expand those vouchers to organizations like myself so that we can work with organizations like Clemson Paw Partners to get these animals fixed. We're not going to get over this cat overpopulation crisis without having community effort. It's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. It's something that I think a lot of the residents are very passionate about, but it's something that a lot of residents don't ever have to deal with until you have to deal with it, and they don't know the resources. So I'm asking that County Council consider expanding their voucher program to organizations like myself, where we can go in and help people who are overwhelmed, get these cats fixed so they can continue to feed them, and we can help reduce the animal overpopulation in Pickens County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret Thompson.
I'll give you another little break from the Highway 11. Margaret Thompson, I'm the founder of Clemson Paw Partners. Mary has been working with us quite a bit, and since we opened our clinic, since we got a vet on March 29th of this year, we have spayed and neutered 1,053 animals. 269 of those were feral cats. But we really didn't start the feral cat program with Pickens County until around May. And we, through communication with Mr. Roper and Stacy out at the animal shelter, we've sort of broken a lot of rules as far as the vouchers and everything like that. So what we did was, instead of keeping it 3 per household, because if you had 4 ferals, but you could only get a voucher for 3, then you got that 1 feral, so that made no sense to me. But what these people have done that have come to us, they have given of their time. They come and help clean the clinic. They have worked the Clemson basketball games, the concession stands, which is about a 12-hour day. And we've had one lady that's come every time, and so far in her community in 6 Mile has cleaned up about 21 ferals. So we like to get these large colonies. It's working. We thank the county for providing the building that we're in. It's been hugely successful. We still do not pay ourselves and don't intend to pay ourselves, and that'll always be my rule. Now, we do have to pay the vets and the vet techs, and I want to give you that figure. Since March 29th, when we started payroll, it's $74,782. But we have more vets now that we're working with, and you know, they come with a price. But we give the same quality care. We give the same meds. We do all that if you would go to your family vet. The difference is if you go in to take a female cat to be spayed, you're going to probably look at anywhere from $300 on up, and that's just for the spay. We do it for $88, and that includes the spay, the rabies, and the vaccinations. So and I tell you what, I don't get into the weeds about how much money you make. I don't get into all that, but I can kind of spot people. But a lot of people do donate to us, and I think we've made a huge difference, and we thank Pickens County for helping us with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Nan Galt.
Good evening. I have a couple of questions I hope you can address later. I was curious that somebody said they read the 3rd draft, because I've only been able to find the 1st draft online, and I think that's part of the issue, is there's a lot of he said this, she said this, and we don't have the facts. You've got a map outside that has a 250 feet corridor, and the 1st draft said 2 miles south of 11. So, you know, which is it? I mean, people, if they had accurate information, then they could be more supportive of what you want to do. And I mean, I'm 100% in support of some kind of regulation. all due respect to the man with the petition, I used to live in Sumter County. I used to read an electric meter at a hazardous waste dump because Sumter County had no zoning. Right now, anything could move up in 11. And the general consensus is we like it like it is, leave it alone, that you can't just leave it alone and have it stay like it is. And I'd also like confirmed if this is a first reading, a second reading, or a third reading, because I've never seen it on the agenda as an official reading. So again, I think people need to know exactly where we are. I guess that's it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, this concludes the public forum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item on tonight's agenda is the approval of minutes from the October 3rd, 2022 meeting. I ask for a motion and second for approval of these minutes.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Feimster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Seda. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 4 on tonight's agenda is the administrator's report. Mr. Roper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to update you on a few things that the county staff is working on. First thing, and we've announced this previously, but I want to make sure everyone knows this is going on. This coming Wednesday, November the 9th, from 9 o'clock in the morning to 11 a.m. at the Adult Learning Center at 201 South 5th Street in Easley. We're having a veteran-friendly job fair. This is part of our Hiring Heroes Operation Greenlight hiring month between now, basically, and Veterans Day, trying to show how open Pickens County is to our veteran population, how valuable they are as workers to us, and how we want to encourage those veterans to work and live here amongst us. Knowing what we've been publicizing on social media throughout the last few weeks are all the veterans that already work for Pickens County and the good work they're already doing here. We know firsthand how good they can be. So we've got our veteran-friendly job fair. A couple of details about that people may not know. It's a cooperation between Alliance Pickens, SC Works, School District Pickens County, Upstate Warrior Solutions, and the State VA, all coordinating on this veteran-friendly job fair. It's open to any member of the public that would like to come to the job fair because we've got a lot of employers who will be there looking for good workers. But we're trying to make it veteran-friendly. There's a veteran resource table that'll be at the job fair. And also, if any veteran would like help with resume prep, we'd like for them to go. No appointments necessary. They can go to the SC Works office on 1376 Tiger Boulevard in Clemson. No appointment necessary. Bring your information, your certifications from your service in, and the SC Works folks will help them prepare their resumes. So we want to keep hiring heroes, and that's part of what council has tasked us to do with the resolution you passed. In keeping with that as well, I'm excited to announce tonight that we're unveiling a Hiring Heroes campaign that's specific to our fire service. We have, as council, as you will recall, y'all created a number of fire positions to provide uniform fire coverage throughout the county. And so we're starting a Hiring Heroes program there as well. For the first time, I think, in county history, a $500 hiring bonus if you're a fireman that comes on board, a $500 referral bonus if you're a county employee that gets us a fireman referred to us. There's qualifications, this certain amount of time you have to work, but we're trying to encourage people to apply for these positions because they're so valuable positions for us. Both our Emergency Services Department and our Human Resources Department are participating in the job fair that's happening on Wednesday in Clemson, so we encourage people to take advantage of that. Council passed, I guess, a couple of months ago a surplus property abandonment process, and I want to put these two properties on your radar because these are the first two written requests we've received. I'll be glad to give you further information about this, but I just wanted to put it on your radar in case you were curious. One is 141 Quiet Lane. You'll see the green area over there is that property. The owner has written to us and asked us if we would surrender that portion. You see that little bite out of the apple there at the top where it's platted on a plat as a county road, but there's no deed underneath that. So it'd be my intention to grant that request. We've checked with registered deeds, we've checked with Our road maintenance department will check with the county engineer. It's just raw land, and that's, we want that person to enjoy their raw land. So we're considering deeding that back to them. Please feel free to ask for any more information over the next few days. The next step in the process under the ordinance would have Mr. Hendricks review all this and prepare a quitclaim deed for the county. Similar with 201, 205 Waterstone Drive, we've received a written request on that one where it's a little stub of a road, and I don't know if you can see because it's not color-coded on this map, but there's a little stub of a road, but the road actually just turns and goes to the right. Same property owner owns all that property around that stub as it's described there. So they've written to us and requested that we surrender that right-of-way to them. So in this case, what he wants to do is put a fence across his property. And so he's wanting to do that, and we want to support him with that. It's met all the requirements under the ordinance, except now it's ready to go to the county attorney for his review. And again, I'll be glad to send you all the underlying documents if you'd like to look in this further. But these are two examples of the kind of things, the requests we get. And so we want to thank you for that and let you know about our consideration on those. We also want to pass on a thank you to Duke Energy. Duke Energy provides certain grant money every year to Pickens County as a part of our proximity to the Kiowee Toxaway program. And it's supposed to go specifically for initiatives related to recycling. This council supported county staff and their recommendations through the past couple of years very strongly in allowing us to modernize our equipment at our landfill and our recycling centers. The market being what it is, we find that our baled cardboard, our baled plastic, our baled aluminum cans, there's good market for those. But the thing that we're struggling with right now is glass. Glass is very difficult to get someone to come and get. So the grant we've gotten from Duke Energy, we're going to apply that towards a small, about my size, glass pulverizing machine. And we're going to put that down at building maintenance and see if we can't produce some sand that's then suitable for building maintenance to use in things like post holes. We're doing a proof of concept on this small scale. If it works, we're going to look at maybe expanding that, and we'll have to bring that back to you all. But the idea is, could we use Pickens County glass on Pickens County roads? Could we use Pickens County glass at the Pickens County landfill if we've pulverized it and turned it into sand? So we're going to prove that concept to see if it works or not before we bring y'all a specific recommendation. But we're going to start with things in our building maintenance department. So we're excited about that. It'll probably be 90 days or so before we get this piece of equipment in, but we'll keep you all updated on it. Keeping with the theme of solid waste, you'll recall that we received the delivery of the C&D shredder. You'll see it right there. It came in a couple of days ago. One of the interesting things about the shredder and the initiatives that you all have shown and staff has shown with shredding of our C&D waste is we needed to have DHEC right with us every step of the way because this was new for the state of South Carolina. This is something that hadn't really been done, shredding C&D like this. Once we got the second shredder and it became apparent that this was going to be our program going forward, that we weren't just experimenting with this, DHEC required us to apply for a permit modification. And they granted us that permit modification. Just this past week, we received notice that they had granted it. For the first time, we think, in the history of the state, we're not just a landfill, we are now what DHEC refers to as a solid waste processing facility. And that's because we're able to grind up C&D, grind up tires, we're able to do things, and it's part of our permit on that facility now. So we're very proud to be leading the way. I think DHEC is very interested in seeing how this all works for us because landfill space is at a premium in this state. And so much like our small glass proof of concept could perhaps grow to a larger program, this C&D shredding process in Pickens County, we think, could be a model for the state. So we're very excited about that. Glad that DHEC has sanctioned that and put their seal of approval on it. Gentlemen, that's all I have prepared for you, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Roper?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Sager.
A couple questions for you. You mentioned we bought the shredder. I was told by 2 tire stores that the landfill was not taking tires anymore because they had so many of them. I guess now that you got the second shredder, when are you going to start shredding those tires and start taking them at the landfill?
We've actually already shred a few just in testing how the machine works, but that's all we've done until the permit came through. So we now have the permit. We should shred some tires in the coming week or so. We'll get more intense with what we're doing with shredding tires after we've reduced some of the backlog up at the C&D sort facility. But you'll see that grow over time.
So what's the time frame on that? What do you think we'll really get going?
It's unknown at this point because the waste stream comes into us, in an irregular fashion. Okay. But you should see more and more. I would imagine over the next couple of months you'll see some tire shredding.
Okay, because that was one of the reasons we bought it. Right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay.
No, we're excited about that, Mr.
Okay. Okay. Could you give us an update on the 3 capital projects at the Haygood Mill? One was the bathroom we were going to fix. The other one was the 10 glamping sites. And then the pavilion doors. Where do we stand on those 3 projects?
So let me start with the bathroom, because I know you've asked about that a couple times. The bathroom, as far as reported to us from the Haygood Mill folks, has been repaired. They've sent us an invoice for the half of the expense, which was our agreement, and we have processed that invoice. So we consider that project complete from our standpoint. On glamping, their glamping proposal actually requires a development permit from our Department of Community Development, and we've been asking for them to get that development permit to us. We met with them just a little over a week ago to walk them through that application to make sure they understood what they needed to do in order to get what they needed to do to get their permit. And so we're waiting on that to come back. We expect that to come back any day on their development permit. As far as the pavilion goes, Haygood Mill Foundation met on October 27th and approved the most recent plan they have. That plan's now going back to the architect who's supposed to produce actual buildable drawings. Once we receive those, as we've committed to the Haygood Mill Foundation, we're going to take over sort of project management. We're going to make sure it gets bid out and it gets complete just like we would any road project, any building project in Pickens County.
And what is the time frame on that?
We've got to wait till the plans come back before we could give you any kind of estimate on that.
Any other questions for Mr. Roper?
I got
Councilman Whitehurst.
I know you've been working with Paul Partners and this CAT program stuff. Can you
Right.
kind of, I know it's a real problem in the county, and we've mostly focused on dogs, and it's been great that they've been helping on that.
Right.
She's talking about doing some kind of a modification. Can you give me more information on where we are with that and what's our policy and how we're handling it?
Yes, sir. So we have a certain amount of money set aside for basically paying private vets to fix cats that are brought in by members of the public. So if they qualify, they can get a voucher, and then that cat can get spayed or neutered for a cheaper price than what the vet would normally charge, because we would pay the difference. The idea being that it benefits all of the taxpayers if we can reduce that feral population. What Ms. Thompson's referring to, and I think she left, but what she was referring to is that Clemson Paul Partners, and I like the way she said this, she said that we've broken a lot of rules. Their passion for this program, they have broken a lot of the rules of our voucher program. Basically, we can't give one rescue all of our month's allotment of vouchers, and so we have to be careful with how many we give away. And Margaret and I have had a good conversation, as you can imagine, through the last few months about the best way to do that. Interestingly, she had this afternoon the rescue Dixie, I forget the name of it, but the lady that spoke earlier tonight. She has been talking with us. We want to do a pilot program in one neighborhood, like pick one discrete neighborhood and spend a little money and see if we could take some surveys before and some surveys after and see how much the public appreciates that. Once we have that data, we want to come back to you and ask you to expand the program to put more budgetary resources behind it. Just to voucher one at a time, folks coming through the door, you're never going to get out of your cat problem doing that way. What Margaret's folks are doing is they're looking at discrete colonies and trying to fix discrete colonies. That's the right way to do it. So we want to come up with a good neighborhood, and Margaret's put us together with the Dixie Rescue, and we hope to be able to bring some data back on that.
Do you have any idea when you can do? I know we had talked about a program like this where it was a catch, spade, and release.
Right. We've struggled, a couple of partners that we reached out to and planned something like this before, they get so excited, they just go start picking up cats. And so we don't have any data once they do that. So one thing that I've stressed to Margaret about this is I hate to use the word scientific, but let's be very tactical with what we do, because I want to bring y'all some good data about the success of a program. There's a lot of opinions on both sides of TNR, and I want to bring you some data before we ask for you to commit more taxpayer dollars.
So it's something you're ongoingly?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Any other questions for Mr. Roper? Thank you, Mr. Roper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item 5 on tonight's agenda is committee reports. The Committee of the Whole met on October 17th. Log number 80 was the county radio system. I made a motion to put out an RFP for either or Project 25 UHF standalone system and the Project 25 800 megahertz standalone system. The motion was seconded by Councilman Feimster and carried unanimously 6-0. No second is required. This comes as a recommendation from the committee. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for all those in favor to please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Log number 209, County Constables and Certification Process. Councilman Wilson made a motion to table for future consideration. Motion was seconded by Councilman Feimster and carried 5-1 with Councilman Seda opposed. No seconds required. This comes as a recommendation from the committee. Is there any discussion? I would ask for all those in favor to please signify by raising your hands. Opposed? Thank you. Log number 205, an ordinance to establish standards and limitations on future development on the South Carolina Highway 11 Scenic Byway and matters related thereto. Councilman Whitehurst made a motion for the following recommendations. The motion was seconded by Councilman Emsley Feimster and carried 5-1 with Councilman Wilson opposed. The recommendations were to add a 250 feet buffer on Highway 11, no limitation behind the buffer. Council to ask staff to get the total number of houses. A 100-foot buffer would affect on the back roads of Highway 11 and no industrial north of Highway 11. To establish a conservation bank with no money designated at this time. Commercial design standards for anything north of 11. To include exemptions as listed as a major intersection 1, 2, and 3 for access to property behind the buffer and any private roads. No seconds recommended as this comes a recommendation. No second is required as this comes as a recommendation from the committee. Is there any discussion on these items?
Yes.
Councilman Whitehurst.
We want to get some information from you guys.
Yes, you should have in your packet or you received by email the 1s, 2s, and 3s roads, the major intersections. The map you requested, it was too large and I couldn't figure out a place to put it, but basically we've got that outside. If you need to look at it right outside the door, I'll be glad to bring that in, but it just shows a 250-foot buffer on either side. And then the number of properties, the number of houses that would be impacted by a 100-foot setback off of all the roads in the northern part of the county, the number on that is 334, and I've got a list of them in front of me. So it's a not insignificant number of houses.
Say that number again.
334. I'm sorry, I got it backwards. 343. 343.
Mr. Chairman.
The rest of those changes, Mr. Whitehurst, I believe are found in the ordinance as y'all requested, and Mr. Hendricks can speak to that.
The 343, that's not just Highway 11, that's all
everything back there.
that whole area.
Councilman Whitehurst.
So what we're looking at here, just so we're all on the same page, is this 250-foot setback, which I'm flexible on, honestly. But behind that, people can do what they want to with their properties. There is design limitations on commercial buildings, but no limitations on anything that's residential. So residential people can do what they want to. We have in here no building of neighborhoods of more than 10 houses. That's what I'm reading?
That's correct.
Basically some design stuff commercial to fit into any commercial building that would be inside of this 1,000-foot area would have some requirements as to how it should look.
Yes, if I could address that, when council had its committee of the whole, and they were talking about the area that the commercial design limitations would be in, you stated north of Highway 11.
Right.
I think the intent that council had at that point was to have it somewhat south of Highway 11, like 1,000 feet south of Highway 11. and then north of Highway 11. So I did put that
Yeah.
in the ordinance that's 1,000 feet south. So in essence, you have a 250-foot buffer setback, and then behind that, you have design ordinance for commercial only. Prohibition against any industrial, and no prohibition on anything residential other than subdivisions over 10 houses.
Okay.
Other questions, discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Salem.
looking at the details of this, I'm not going to vote for this, so let me explain why. The ordinance basically regulates 1,000 feet south of Highway 11 all the way up to the North Carolina line. This was not talked about throughout the lengthy public notice and the public input process that went on for over a year. The discussion then was about a narrow corridor around Highway 11. If you look at the 2019 branding report, it talked about a 500-foot corridor of protection around Highway 11. Then the comprehensive plan, which was passed by the Planning Commission and the County Council, talked about a scenic Highway 11 corridor. The 2022 ACOG meetings focused on a 1,000-foot corridor. The moratorium was 660 feet in the corridor. And I just remember going to every one of those ACOG meetings, and there was a real map with a real narrow corridor, and people walking up to the map and saying, am I in the corridor or not? And I would say, no, you're not. Don't worry about it. Now, that was what's happening now is this area has just been lengthened at the last minute. I don't know what I'm going to tell these people, honestly, because we basically told them one thing for about 16 months, and at the last minute it's been widened out. The initial corridor was anywhere from 5 to 7 square miles. This is now about 100 square miles, or 20% of the county. Suddenly what happened was you had this big jump towards the end there, and I didn't support that. I think the larger area and looking at it may have some merit, but that should have been brought up at the start of the process 18 months ago, so you could have been fully disclosed. You could have got full input, public input on it all along the way, not right here at the last minute. I think what we should do is try to pass a very narrow corridor like we talked about, and once that's passed, then we look at the second step and maybe looking at something larger. The other point is, when you look at property rights laws, one thing that's very clear is the government can't regulate a piece of property, so it has no use at all. There's a landmark case of Coastal Carolina versus Lucas, which says you can't do that. So for 250 feet off of Highway 11, this proposal does that. There's no use at all of land at all. No use of the property at all. I mean, that's illegal, in my opinion. We're going to lose some of those cases when they're brought up against us. So, and this ordinance does allow small subdivisions along Highway 11, and the most problematic thing for me is it allows commercial all along Highway 11 in some way, shape, or form. And it's not what the people of Highway 11 want. It's a scenic highway. It should not be commercialized at all. It should be residential only.
Can I address?
Councilman Waters.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes, sir.
In the ordinance that we have in front of us,
Yes, sir.
my understanding is the only thing that we've done to expand this was saying no industrial development in the whole area.
No industrial development and no commercial development, other than complies with the design.
Okay.
So commercial development has to comply with design. There's no industrial development under this ordinance north.
But the commercial's just inside the barrier of the 1,000 foot.
No, sir, it's from 1,000 feet south of Highway 11 to the state line.
Okay.
For commercial development, and commercial is allowed, however, it must be subject to the designs that are in there.
Okay. I was under the impression we were still, the only thing that I wanted to really take outside of that 1,000 foot was industrial. Because I think that's something everyone can agree on. That outside the whole area up there does, but I think that the lady's point up here, it's not very buildable anyway. It doesn't make a lot of economic sense, so it's kind of a moot point. But I think that's the point of this thing, is to stop any of that. I am not thinking commercial addressing outside of what we're talking about for this buffer, or this zone of 1,000 feet. Now, maybe that was and I'm open to what y'all thoughts on that is. I don't have a problem with reducing that barrier down, but I do think the whole point of what we're trying to do is preserve the view. And if you say there's no buffer, then you can come up there and clear cut your property because it's yours, and you can say, I want to put, make it all lawn, and people are saying, hey, they want to preserve the view. Well, that's what a 100-foot buffer would do, and I don't have a problem with a 100-footer. If someone feels like they feel better comfortable with that.
I do have a concern. Some people could let that buffer just go and go and go, and first thing you know, it looks a mess out there. And I'm wondering how we're going to prevent that.
My understanding is that we don't touch the buffer. It's natural, right?
That's correct. There would be no restrictions as far as that you had to go in and cut your bushes or trim your trees. There's none of that in this ordinance.
Obviously, if they encroach in a right of way, then whoever comes in and cleans them up as they do currently, not. Vice Chairman.
Do you know the number of residences that are affected, or the property owners that are affected by a 100-foot buffer just on Highway 11?
I know that number for 250 feet. That was the query that I guess came out of the committee. There's 14 properties that would be almost completely consumed by a 250-foot buffer on Highway 11. Of those, I think 6 already have houses on them. 3 of them are little slivers that wouldn't be suitable for building. So there's, I think 5 is what I determined in looking through it. And I've got those pictures that I could give you. 5 would actually have, under our current DSO, some type of building that would be allowed, but for this proposed setback.
Say that one more time. Of the 21 miles.
So of the length of Highway 11, 250 feet on each side, there's 14 parcels that are almost completely consumed by 250 feet. And I could show you an example. I'll pass this around. Of those, 6 of them already have houses on them. No, wait, 5 of them already have houses on them, and 2 of them are just little slivers. You'll see an example right here. This is what I'm talking about being completely consumed by a 250-foot buffer. It would be something that we would have to look at in terms of our Board of Zoning Appeals. Our Planning Commission would have to look at that and say, okay, does this warrant a hardship waiver, which happens in circumstances like this from time to time. But I do appreciate the question and want you to know that. You see, Mr. Vice Chairman, what I'm talking about there?
I do.
Any other question or discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Wilson.
So we had discussed earlier when there was an idea to require 5 acres of land to build next to Highway 11. We discussed that there's currently a civil appeal process of whatever form that would prevent us from keeping people from building if they only had 1 acre or 2 acres and they currently own the land. So given that that's the case, and there is there is a process in place, and I think that the Zoning Board of Appeals would probably be a fairly simple process. If you're on the property, at 250 feet, you're talking 14. Only, according to what you're telling us, 5 really have an effect. They have a very specific means of addressing that issue, with the folks that are going to do this for us. It seems that 250 is amenable. If we're going to adjust it, we're going to be adjusting it arbitrarily based on a number that all of us feel comfortable with. I'd like to understand better how we would go about, guessing which number would be fine.
Mr. Chairman.
Question.
So I know that and thank you for getting these copies made. Mr. Chastain, who is here, I'm going to pass this out. He sent a letter in, and there you go. And for those who don't know, Mr. Chastain is a property owner on Highway 11. He also is is about the most knowledgeable historian I know of the entire area, and when it has to do with the history and the culture. And I find it interesting what he put together. I'll give you guys a chance to look over his suggestion based on the conversations that he's heard. But this is, again, from someone who lives there and owns the property there. I also wanted to make note that there are a lot of things that we're talking about that are already under some sort of restrictions, like signage. Signage already exists. I mean, they already put that in place. I know the state legislature also put in place building up above certain elevations. We did find that to be true, or no? I thought that's what the...
Yeah, there's a Ridgeline Act that was passed, but
Right.
it doesn't affect the properties that we see out there.
Right.
It's over 30, I think it's 3,000 feet.
Okay.
Any other questions, comment, discussion?
So, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Councilman Wilson.
So to go back to the setback piece, I think that we'd all be flexible in regards to it. Mr. Chastain is saying 50 feet. Some of the folks with very strong opinions have been pretty clear that they'd like for us to do something to protect the view shed. The 250 seemed like, to me, a reasonable solution to some of the other debate that we've had along this process. I would like to remind folks that we started out with a proposal from Mr. Seda that was fair, like 5 or 6 lines long, basically, and we've gone through and talked to all of our constituents. This process has been 18 months, but it's been 18 months of talking to people that live up there, that grew up there, that have traveled there, owned property there, vacationed there, camped there, hiked there. So, the folks in the back that had such strong opinions about how prepared we were, they've left, which to me is a statement in and of itself. But we have become as prepared as we can, and it's taken 18 months. Mr. Seda, was saying that we should have brought something to the table 18 months ago, and we've been debating this as a whole. And the issues, I've gone through a learning curve and talked to folks about what they're looking for from my area, people that I know up there. And so I have ended up, at the point where I'm, supporting the bigger space. Because the folks are telling me that if we've got a chance and an opportunity now, it's part of the agenda right now, that it's not just protecting that street, that one single road, that one particular area, because you're taking that road to get to other places. You're taking that road to go somewhere, to do something. It's not just driving up and down the road, which I understand, right, the whole road trip idea, but it's the space as a whole. That, because, the road could be perfect and you pull off and, it's a total train wreck, like you were talking about, with industrial growth that could be and go up there, or commercial growth that poisons the land. And Mr. Costner talked about protecting the water and the water resources up there and how unique the water resources are here. Fujifilm built $1 billion facility or more down in Greenwood specifically because of the water resources that we have in this region. A lot of that, spills down that way. So to me, the greater area, since we do have the political inertia now to take strong action, is warranted. Not just the 250-foot strip beside a road that takes you to the places that are going to be, destroyed if we don't protect them. So to me, the 250 is amenable, and it was a resolution of some issues we had before. The commercial, we're not limiting what commercial can do. If you remember, we started out with 0 commercial, and some of us had some very strong opinions about how this affects people's constitutional rights to their lands. So there was a learning curve on that associated with the last 18 months as well. We set through a nice program at a state meeting that taught us all a lot about how the Constitution affects our Fifth Amendment rights. So that took time. I didn't know that 18 months ago. I couldn't quote to you then provisions associated with this. So where we've got to now with commercial is allowing the commercial, because taking away those folks' rights, which Mr. Seda was on camera saying that he didn't have a problem taking away those types of rights. But it takes more than one person to vote for this. It takes 4 of us at least to pass this thing. And personally, and I think that some of the other folks here have an issue with stripping away people's complete capacity to doing commercial activities on their properties. So this is an area where we're trying to meet in the middle. Nobody up here is going to get our way. I'm specifically not going to get many of the things that people in my constituency have asked me to do. But we're going to have to meet in the middle. So out of the gate, if you're not going to get what you want, you're just not going to vote for any of it. That's just not how politics works. Some of us are going to have to vote for some of this that's not necessarily what we want to be at. But over the 18 months dialogue that we've had, we've come together over what I feel like is starting to become something that's cogent. That after this vote tonight, at the third reading, should be something that maybe not everybody's 100% happy with, but the majority of the community can agree that whatever they gave was worth what they got. That's what I'm hoping for. So I am going to vote for it. On the commercial side of the fence, telling people that you have to use, green siding or whatever else is in here is pretty standard. Folks that build around some of the lakes are very much limited to what they can do, and those are government organizations that are mandating that. In some places, it's the federal, through the Army Corps, telling you that you can only have, certain colors on your boat docks and on your houses. How much of your land you have to have a buffer on, and how that you can take care of them, whether or not you can cut trees. It's standard. So, I respect what you were saying earlier about, what was it, like butterfly blue or something like that. But these are simple kinds of restrictions on commercial, or the way that will keep commercial from being onerous with respect to the way the neighbors perceive it and live around it. So to me, this is as close to what you're going to get to 6 people, with the Ouija board trying to figure out, which letter to pick next. This is, what's it called? Collaboration, and in some ways give and take in politics. I think that's what most folks are asking us to do. So none of you guys are going to get exactly what you want. Neither are we. But we're going to get the best possible, work that we can do, and that's taken 18 months. So that's my opinion about it. Sorry for the word salad, but when it comes down to it, is it perfect? I don't think it is.
Any other questions? I have a question. So y'all help me understand why 250 feet? I like Mr. Chastain's point here. Why not 50 feet? What is the reason behind the 250 feet? Because that's a long way. 250 feet. I can't do math at night. It's a lot of yards.
It's 80 yards.
Thank you.
I think.
From my perspective, I'm not locked into 250.
Right. I just wondered
why.
A
little bit less than what we were looking at, which was 1,000 foot.
Yeah, it was a 1,000-foot buffer with zero.
Yeah. So
and I get where Mr. Council or Dr. Wilson's going.
I'm okay with a smaller number. I think my idea was to make sure there was enough of a barrier from the road that anything you built behind that barrier you couldn't see from the road.
Can we get these guys to clarify for us? What we started out with was 1,000 feet, but Mr. Sada's proposal was that you could do residential all the way up to the road, regardless of what you wanted to do. There was no buffers. We've been using the last 2 meetings we've used the term as a buffer. And what we've meant is a green zone, basically, where you can cut a road through it or whatnot, but you really kind of leave the indigenous species there. That's what we ended on with the last definition of buffer on Highway 11, and then we're using the DSO's current definition of a buffer for the number 2 and 3 roads, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So there was never a prohibition of doing anything for 1,000 feet, which our setback buffer is. It's a prohibition of doing any industrial, any commercial, or any residential along Highway 11 if it's not there. There was never a prohibition of doing anything for 1,000 feet. At one time, there was a zone, an area that was 1,000 feet from either side of Highway 11 that you were dealing with. This is a slim area, 250 feet, that you don't disturb unless there's already something there. And then beyond that, the way it's written is that there would be limitations on any commercial that you could do. Behind it, you can do whatever residential you want. There's no limitations on residential on this, but there would be limitations on commercial and a complete prohibition of any industrial.
Okay.
You do have limitations on residential, though, don't you?
Well, there's limitations on residential to the extent that you can't have a subdivision more than 10 houses.
Right.
And certainly, this does not make the present DSO go away. So you has to be up to electrical code and everything that requires. Right. But this does not add any restrictions on residential at all. It does not make restrictions on residential. It other than you can't have a subdivision that's more than 10 homes.
Other discussion?
just as a final word, I think Mr. Wilson's made a point. We've all given and taken on this. I don't think any of us, there's a little bit that he's given, a little bit I've given. You know, Alex even voted for this second one. There's a little, I think it's a little give and take, and that's kind of what we try to come up with, something that we can all agree on, because I think we all want to protect the area. It's just a question of that protection of personal rights versus the protection of the whole area. And I think that's where we have all struggled. And the concern is always stepping on people's property rights and what they can do. But I feel like we also have to protect this unique part of Pickens County. And trying to do the combination is not easy. But with you, there's things that I would do differently, there's things you do differently, but it's a good step in the right direction.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Dr. Wilson.
I don't know how to propose this, but I think that if for a second reading that we could vote for this. What I would suggest is that a number of us meet individually so that we don't have a quorum and go walk 250 feet in the areas where you clearly, if 250 feet it wasn't the barrier, where you might have an impact that some of these folks would find stark with regards to the view shed. Just go walk it. And I'm just telling you, as a fat man, I'm telling you I'm going to go walk about 250 foot is a sacrifice, folks. Trust me.
Other discussion? Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sager.
You know, I took the time to personally knock every door that I could on Highway 11 and talk to the people. The majority want no new manufacturing, no new commercial. They didn't want any new subdivisions either. They told me that. They wanted residential only. It's a scenic highway. It should not have commercial on it or new commercial. That's the big issue. This is going to allow commercial various different ways. 25 years from now, it's not going to look like it does now. And that's what they wanted. They kept screaming at me, keep it the way it is. That's what the majority said to me. The proposal that was closest to what the people wanted that I spoke to was the moratorium. It was 660 feet off Highway 11, north and south. It allowed single lots with no restrictions at all. It allowed subdivisions up to 10 houses. It had no new manufacturing, no new commercial. As a compromise, I would scratch Section 2C of that moratorium, which allows the Planning Commission to basically exempt anything, which would be a political mess. And I'd like to make that a substitute motion on second reading.
So if you don't mind, please state your substantive motion.
Okay, it's the moratorium and make it permanent. The moratorium is single lots are allowed, no restrictions. In the 660 feet we're talking about, single lots are allowed with no restrictions. Small subdivisions of 10 homes are allowed within that 660 feet. So it's residential only, plus and minus 660 feet off the highway, protecting the shoulder of the road. There's no new manufacturing in that 660 feet. There's no new commercial. And I'm going to scratch in the moratorium Section 2C, which allows the Planning Commission to exempt anything it wants.
So I have a substitute motion. Madam Clerk, do you have that on the table? Do I have a second for the substantive motion to replace the ordinance in front of you for second reading? Hearing no second, the motion dies.
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman.
So I just want to say, and I appreciate all the work that you did in talking to the folks that you did. The people that I talked to were saying something completely different. When I talked to when I went out to the Freedom Rally, when I went to all these different places, they were saying, no, protect our personal property rights. And again, I'll go back to the guy walked up to me and said, I'm a mechanic and I have a shop in my garage. And if this happened, I couldn't have, that's commercial. Now all of a sudden I can't fix cars in my garage because, I mean, even though he would be grandfathered in, but his point was if we put this in place, then somebody else couldn't do the same thing. And I made the point last time, that person who owns a barn that says, you know what, this would make a beautiful place for a wedding venue. They can't do that. Or somebody who wants to come in, and we had a couple of people that even mentioned, you know, It would be nice to have something small and rustic or whatever that goes up there, but to me, that what I hear is they don't want, the industrial we can just throw off the table because it's not going to happen because there's no flat, I mean, it's not flat enough, and we're all in agreement on that. It's the commercial or the definition of commercial that we're having a problem with. Because to some people, commercial is, oh, you're going to go in and you're going to do all these homes, or you're going to go in and you're going to do some big manufacturing facility. And to me, commercial is the guy who has the corn maze, or the lady who wants to sell the jalapeno, whatever, cowboy candy. You know, that's still considered commercial based on our definition of commercial. So you can't say zero commercial because you're throwing out all of the great heritage and culture that Mr. Chastain talks about. So, I mean, I really like his proposal. I don't want to infringe on people's personal property rights. But I remember speaking for a long time with Ms. Kelly about we've got to think about the environment. The great thing on the environment is there's a lot of protections that are already in place because of federal state regulations that are there, which is great. And we are, and Dr. Wilson's correct, we're continuing to learn. As far as coming prepared, man, we're talking about this almost every day to as many people as we can. And it's interesting that there are people on both sides. So we're not going to be able to fix it just to suit one person.
I just want to be clear, just because I don't know that I fully understand. To the person's point, we can all be educated a little more, and that's everybody in the room. The 250 feet, so if I'm going down the 21 miles, 250 feet on the left and 250 feet on the right, affects 14 parcels of land. That means there are 14 potential property owners. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
14 that consumes their
It's
whole
consumed,
property.
so it affects 80 some odd property owners. You know, there's a
But
lot of property owners, but the ones who's the 250 feet would consume their property.
Would totally consume their property.
Right.
Would take
I hate to.
So you use the word,
equivocate.
and I hate to get down to this level of it, but unfortunately that's where we are. You know, where what does a word mean? So when you say consume, what do you mean?
Well, I'm going to pass you a couple of examples that I think will help illustrate this. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'll walk that way.
Please do.
This would be completely consumed.
250 feet would completely consume that one.
Consume that piece of property. All right. 250 feet would not completely consume this property.
Mostly.
It would 85% consume.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you see me equivocating, that's why. That's what I'm saying. Not totally. Of those, you know, several of them already have houses on them, so they would already be pre-existing nonconformities. And a couple of them, and I'll show you one of those, so I apologize for the sound. This is a perfect example. This is one of them that might be enough area to put a stop sign on, but it is completely consumed.
That's one of the 14.
That's one of the 14. So you have I think 3 that are similar to this, which the guy owns that one and the thing behind it, right?
You'd said earlier there were 6 that were slices.
Six that are, and I'm getting the numbers all mixed up now, but there, in that 14, there are a few that have houses on them already, a few that are not buildable lots, and a few that are open pieces of land that are almost completely consumed.
5 of those.
What about an existing lot where a guy has a house on it, and he wants to build something, maybe a second home? That's got to be 250 feet back, right?
So
Yeah.
I'll defer to Les on that
Yeah,
question.
Yeah, so it doesn't just affect those 14 lots, it affects everybody.
Well, if you have a house there already, it doesn't affect that house, but if you're going to build another house,
Yeah.
yes, it does.
So it affects every
250
property,
feet
it affects every
affects
property owner, not
construction.
just 14 lots. Yeah, the 14 lots is basically, you're stripping their, I don't know if it's 14, I think it was 5. You're basically stripping all uses. All uses. So basically, they'll come to you and say, give me a variance or I'm going to sue you. And they're going to win. So you'll give them a variance. But that's how that will get settled. But if, you know, somebody has a piece of property and he wants to build a second house on it, it has to be 250 feet back. So he can't use that first 250 feet. He's going to be angry. Yeah? And they're going to call me. And I'm not voting for it.
Well, same to that argument, someone wants to build a garage and you say they can't because it's commercial, they're going to be angry and they're going to call.
You mean a personal garage?
Me and you and everybody else. So, Councilman Sada, I've been very polite, so please let me finish. I've been very, very quiet through most of this conversation. And I do have my issues and concerns, but I've tried to listen and be extremely respectful. That includes the 11 people that came and spoke tonight, including the ones that say that we're all uneducated and uninformed, when I would argue with that. But saying that, going through this whole process, I've learned, and I've actually been the one that have argued this is a very slippery slope, to the point of many that have spoken. This is setting a precedent that has never been set in this county quite this way before. We do have a DSO that is a pretty strict DSO. If you ask a lot of our developers, they would rather go in a municipality than stay in the unincorporated of the county, because it's very difficult to build these high volume neighborhoods and et cetera, et cetera. So I do want to say that. But I have my email blown up. My phone is rang off the hook. I talk to people everywhere I go. And the property owners that physically own land on 11, the ones that we are talking about directly here, I've heard time and time again, no one's talked to me, and I like it the way it is. And I have to respect that, and I have to understand where they're coming from as well. And I do believe you have to take care of the land that we have, and the water that we have, and the resources that we have, and even the view shed that we have. But we have to be very careful that we're not taking from this group of people for this group of people, because that's a path that other countries and counties have taken that I don't feel comfortable with, just being quite blunt about it. We started down this path 18 months ago. We actually started down it more than we thought 6 years ago, but work had been done prior to that. But the hand was forced with the moratorium. Hindsight, I wouldn't have voted for the moratorium. Just being quite blunt and honest about it, I wouldn't have, because it has brought a lot of fear and a lot of, you and I have talked about, I feel like there's a lot of false information, because you can't get information out there quick enough. It's just physically not possible when there's so much discussion, there's so much that is out there. It's hard to get good, accurate information out there. It really is. And that's kind of what we're up against, is how do we balance the needs of our community with the information and get that information out there appropriately. And I feel like it's been a losing battle. I really do. Because I think the spirit of all this is right. I think some of it comes down to semantics of numbers and what this word means versus what that word means. I mean, who would have thought we'd have been arguing over what a buffer is? But it's got multiple meanings in this conversation. And that has complicated this whole process that really shouldn't be this difficult. It ought to be a lot simpler. It ought to be for anyone to read, understand, and say, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. But we have gone so far beyond that. And that's why I feel like we continue to butt heads, and he said, she said, when that's not the spirit case that I felt at all throughout any of this. I think Mr. Chastain made some great points. I really do. I disagree with saying no industry or no industrial, because I've heard this gentleman stand up and say you have commercial and you have residential in South Carolina and that's it. But now we're throwing industrial in there. What's industrial? What's industrial going to mean in 5 years? You're right. The Department of Revenue defines that. But within that definition, is it always 100% accurate in its purpose and intent? Because when I ask, I get a million different answers. That's an exaggeration. I get several different answers. And that's why these words, these have made it so confusing and convoluted. And the last thing I think any of us collectively as a whole of council, and we've said it time and time again, is we don't want to take away the property rights. We just want to protect what's there and finding that balance. Now you may go ahead. I appreciate you.
I want to just rebut that one point. Did you mean a personal garage? Under my plan, you could build a personal garage in your 660 feet or 1,000 feet, whatever it is. You just couldn't build a service station in that 660 feet because it's a scenic highway.
That's a great question, and I'm in Pickens County, and if I want to do work for my neighbor and my buddy and my pal, so be it. That's what I want to do. If you want to call it a personal garage, I can do that. But see, some people say that's loopholes and that's cheating, and that's where arguments start.
You mean a personal garage that I park my car in under my plan?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I like
Are you talking about a business? If it's a business under my plan in 660 feet to 1,000, whatever you want to choose, they would not be able to do that. No, it's a scenic highway. That's my whole argument.
And as a small business owner, I say, what gives you the right to tell me I can't have a small business?
Mr. Chairman, and where does it stop? Where does it stop? In other words, if we start at this point, if we continue down this road of, well, okay, in this area we're going to make sure it's not, and now in 2 years we'll start about zoning somewhere else in the county, and this is in a county where we're actually zoned. And where does it stop when you start taking away personal property rights? I still contend whether a guy wants to work on his, whether a guy wants to work on his buddy's cars, or whether somebody wants to, your batteries did too, or whether somebody wants to do a wedding venue, or whether somebody wants to make candied jalapeno cowboy candy stuff. That's really good stuff. And they wanted to make it and sell that. By the definition of commercial, if you're within that specific area, you can't do it. You can't start up your own little business that way because it's on the corridor. And I have a problem with telling somebody what they can or can't do with their property.
One response to that. We have residential zones all over the county now. If you wanted to build that service station on Glassy Mountain Street in Pickens, you couldn't. If you went to do it, they'd fine you, and if you continued to do it, they'd throw you in jail. Yeah.
That's in the
But the notion that somehow residential only is some foreign idea. We have residential, you can go to Anderson County, they have residential only sections. All I'm saying is, make Highway 11 residential only. That's all I'm arguing. I mean, obviously I'm in the minority, and I'm not going to say much more. But when you go to commercial, to me, it runs against what a scenic highway is all about.
One of the 13 people that spoke tonight said, we're not Greenville County, we're not Oconee County. They have zoning. I don't know about Oconee, but I know Greenville County has zoning.
This is zoning too. This is all zoning, every bit of it.
Mr. Chairman.
But to my point, do you mind if I?
Yeah, please.
My point is, you're right. I live in the city of Easley, and we do have zoning, and they are very restrictive. I joked with my brother about building a barndominium. Guess what? He can't build a barndominium with metal siding where he wants to build it because it's R whatever. And that's the problem with him building what he wants in the city of Easley, which is the one thing the county has never gone down that path. It's only in the municipalities. And that's the slippery slope I believe the vice chairman was discussing, is the unincorporated areas of the county. Dr. Wilson, I apologize.
My motivations for this is to protect the history and the heritage of the area. And just looking back, and I'm not sure if Dennis is here, I think that, are you Dennis? Is that Dennis Chesson? Yes, okay. I heard you speak about naturalism before, and I don't, you may not recall. The folks that settled here for commercial reasons. They took up farming. They sold and traded their products. They harvested animals from the woods and turned over the pellets. I mean, it was a commercial interest up there. The history and heritage. When we first started talking about the commercial, I was all for throwing that out and only allowing ag-based, agribusiness, which, by the way, covers so many things. I mean, it's just an incredible, and the reason why I was for that one as a step away from banning 100% of the commercial is because it would fit the heritage that we have for that particular area. It fits right in. But then the discussion centered on whether or not we are going to, in Pickens County, protect people's property rights. And I understood, and to me, it's a natural step to let people do what they're going to do. I mean, in a marketplace of ideas and in a commercial marketplace, as we live in America, capitalism, the types of businesses that will thrive up there are not going to be lingerie boutiques. They're going to be things that fit naturally into that particular area for the purposes that people are up there. So for me personally, the commercial activities that we're talking about here, it's not necessarily the world's largest auto repair zone that we're talking about. It's a place that might to a certain degree, serve and celebrate the natural beauty that we have up there. The types of things that you would take kids up there to see, arrowheads, the types of stuff that you would think of if your family came from up there. That to me is the business enterprises that will thrive in that particular region. We all talk about Dollar Generals. It's not the Dollar Generals that I think everybody's thinking about on the commercial side. I'm thinking about a concrete plant because somebody's making, cast, what do we call it, ceramic. I'm thinking about an actual place that can sell, full retail to folks, despite the fact that it's going to take an industrial facility to accomplish it. To me, but that's where that industrial piece of it comes in to protect us. So the environmental engineer, you've probably been part of gas station development, right? I mean, a gas station is just a giant cloud of vapors, right? I mean, at any given time, there's fumes and whatnot. There's runoff from it. If we're really talking about keeping industry out, then let's keep gas stations out. Let's keep everything that you need up there to make it work, right? I don't think there's any reason to continue the discussion with regards to the commercial. It's either all or nothing. Either people have the right to do what they want to on their properties with a DSO overlay, which is kind of what we're talking about here, or they don't. They don't make a living. And the will survive will be the types of thing that Dennis, I think, would celebrate.
For just clarification, the question was asked during public forum about the process, and I do want to, just for the record, first reading was May the 2nd. We had public hearing on June 6th. And that was when it was committed to the committee of the whole, was June 6th. So it has been through first reading, and what public hearing has occurred and sent to committee, just for the record purposes.
Well,
Vice Chairman.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we have not had second reading yet. And part of the process of what we go through is hearing from as many people as we can, talking throughout the course of the week, and then getting here, and we have to have something to start with, which is why the first one that we got, was one that we all went, no. And, but we got to have a foundation where we begin our conversations. So it's, think of it as a business meeting and a way for us to hear, each of us are sharing from what our constituents that we're talking to are telling us. Of course, we hear from even more than that. But it's just been a process. And it's been something that's been on our radar since I know the chairman and I first came on board, and I think Councilman Whitehurst will tell you that this has been one of those things that they've talked about over the course of, and Councilman Finster, over a long period of time. It just came to the forefront with the moratorium, and I agree. I don't know that I don't think we should have voted for the moratorium. I did, and I think that was a mistake because it just created the fear and the angst. And the spirit in which we mean to do this is to try to be as open as we can and to listen to as many people as we can, but to realize that everybody has a different opinion and you're not going to make everybody happy. And I love the motorcycle church and I want to help them, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that, but you got to make it across the board. And what we do in one area of the county, we got to be careful how that's going to affect the other area as well.
I'm concerned about churches. My battery's dead. I'm concerned about churches because I think churches are a vital part of the community, and you shouldn't eliminate the churches.
And just for a point of record, all ordinances take 3 readings. An ordinance like this takes a public hearing, which we've already had, and a 3rd reading. So there's still plenty of discussion to be had before anything final is done, just for point of record. Any other discussion tonight? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Opposed? Thank you. That will be the end of the Committee of the Whole report. Council correspondence. The Committee of the Whole meeting will take place on Monday, November 21st at 6 p.m. in the main conference room of the admin facility. Non-essential county offices will be closed Thursday, November 24th and Friday, November 25th for the Thanksgiving holiday. Offices will reopen on Monday, November 28th at 8 o'clock. The next council meeting will be held on Monday, December 5th at 6:30 here in the council chambers. A council reception will be held Monday, December 5th from 5 p. to 6 p. in the council chambers lobbies outside here at the admin building in honor of outgoing council members Inslee Feimster and Councilman Trey Whitehurst. The public is invited to attend the reception. Please contact the clerk with any questions. Are there any other correspondence that need to be announced? Hearing none, motion period new business. This is at our time to add anything new. Is there any member of council with a motion at this time? Can you? Well, we'll see if we can get, the deputy's going to see if he can. All right, I apologize. Any motions or new business at this time? Just for clarification, because it wasn't clear coming out of the committee, I want to ensure, I'd like to make a motion that the Highway 11 ordinance return to committee. If I can get a second on that.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 8, consideration of resolution 2022-28 celebrating Military Family Appreciation Month in conjunction with Operation Greenlight. Ask for a motion and second to consider resolution 2022-28.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Fincher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Chairman. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 9, consideration of resolution 2022-29, establishing a citizenship award for meritorious service for the people of Pickens County. I ask for a motion and a second to consider resolution 2022-29.
Motion.
Motion by the Vice Chairman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Wilson. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Vice Chairman.
I would like to make a motion, that we change the name. I mean, the idea, stewardship's cool. I think you just call it what it is. It's the Pinnacle Citizen Award. And so that it makes sense to what we're trying to do. Stewardship is a big part of that, and I love the criteria that's laid out this way, and the eligibility and the nomination and selection process. Yeah, I just think we just call it what it is. I mean, I've got a whole list of other names that are cool, but yeah, I just think we call it the Pinnacle Citizen Award.
So I have a motion that this be establishing a Pinnacle Citizenship Award for the people of Pickens County. Is that correct?
Correct.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Feimster. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. All right, now to the original motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 10 on tonight's agenda is the consent agenda. The only item I have is the annual capital improvement plan update. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 11 on tonight's agenda is the executive session. I have personnel section, Pinnacle Performer Program, and economic development, project efficiency.
Motion.
I have a motion that we enter into executive session for these items. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Chairman. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank y'all for being with us. We're going to go back to executive session. Feel free to stick around if you would like.